Welcome to the Art and Hustle Podcast, a gallery of conversations, a space where you can hear all the amazing stories and life lessons of my guests. I'm your host, Linda Cheung, fashion designer turned multimedia artist, and I want to give you a space to tell your story.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, you can hear me and see me? Wait, hold on. You can't
I,
see me.
yeah, I can't see you.
Okay, there it is. Start video. I do this all the time. I'm going to be zooming all day today.
You
Between
have your library later on, right?
yeah, at 5 o'clock, and I'm expecting my former colleague, to do it. We do an hour or so with drinks on our hands. So it's
Oh,
good.
well, we have to do one of those too.
Oh, that'd be great. Hey, you and Sarujini were drinking wine. I said, why aren't I drinking? Of course, I'm retired. I can drink anytime I want. 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night, you know?
Yeah, so am I. I can drink any time of the day too, so we should have a cocktail in our hand.
Now, okay, you'll notice my shirt today
Mm,
is on a black background. Here, maybe
yeah,
you can see it a little better.
yeah,
So,
yep.
and I thought since we're doing racism, black would be appropriate. uh, okay. You want to start off?
Yes, so welcome to the Art and Hustle Gallery of Conversations. We have back Bill Schiavo, which is my captain, my Mr. Schiavo, my amazing teacher. Welcome, and I love your shirt. It looks really nice on you. I like the color.
Thank you. You know, probably this is one of the times when having silver gray hair works out, against the black background.
Your shirt goes with everything, your hair, whatever it is, your
Yeah.
personality. I love it all. So
Thank
today
you.
we are going to talk about a little bit about critical race theory and
Uh-huh.
also the racism that you went through, like the race riot and also racist teachers. So I wanted to get your stories about that and your experience of it.
Yeah, I know when you first talked about this and wanted me to discuss this stuff, you would ask me about critical racism. So, what I'm going to, I mean, just to get that out of the way, critical race theory is a gigantic political boondoggle. It's really a hoax, perpetrated by the right wingers. Okay, because
Mm-hmm.
they try to make sure that white people are fearful, of people of color,
Yeah,
and make them crazy. Oh, they're going to take over the world, and
yeah.
now it is true, in terms of the sociologists, that probably around the year 2045, this country will be a minority majority country. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
between blacks and Latinos, Asians, it's going to be whites will be the minority.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking as a person who has many white friends, who I find absolutely deplorable,
And you
to
just
me that
happen to be white too.
yeah, I mean, but you know what? I had this thing. I don't have any self-race hatred. I mean, my feeling about it is simple.
Yeah.
To me, people are people, and I don't care. I mean, I don't care their color. I
Yes.
don't care their
Yeah.
religion. I mean,
Mhm.
for example, even with the religion, even though I may be an avowed atheist, I was
Yeah.
born and raised, baptized a Roman Catholic,
Mhm.
and educated at a Catholic university. But the fact is, I blew all that stuff off. And people who are religious, well, knock yourself out. That's fine. You can believe in any nonsense you want to believe in. Okay, you're
Yeah.
free to do that. I just don't have to believe it along with you. But what I really care about is, and used to be when I was a kid, people didn't take their religious views and then try to foist them on the rest of the population politically. They try to
Oh,
get you to convert to their religion,
yeah. Yeah.
but it wasn't a political lever the way it's become,
Oh,
today.
really? I mean,
Oh no.
technically that's against the law.
Well, not, unfortunately, all these white Christian nationalists and evangelists, they really pushed. They said, well, we're going to try to. That's how this whole thing with trying to get the abortion law overturned. That all came
Mm.
from that group of people. And I'm thinking,
Oh,
wait a second, I don't. You know what? My only issue about that is women and their doctors should be making their decisions.
yeah.
How you feel about it morally or any other way, that shouldn't be any of your business.
Yeah, that's
Okay?
your opinion of it. It's not your body. It
Yeah,
should be
because
the
oh, you're killing fetuses. Well, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, I didn't want to talk about abortion today, but anyway, but my point is
yeah.
that stuff like that is personal and is medical, and there are a
Hmm.
lot of women who don't get abortions who will die if they don't get one,
Yeah.
and others will die if they make it illegal again. I think it would dying. in these back alley abortions. Okay, so
Yeah.
my issue about religion is very simple. It's the same as I have about racism. In other words, why would I care about your color? Why would I care
Mm,
about you? The issue really isn't. I'm going to talk about it, but it's people don't understand that uh, color is an accident. Your eye
yeah.
color is an accident. Your
Mm,
hair color is an accident.
mhm,
Look at you. You
mhm.
got blonde, I see, and you got some dark hair down below there. I
And
mean,
and that's an accident.
yeah. Which
I
you
don't
can,
I don't know how my hair got blonde like
and by the way, you can make it, you can make it look more or less like a train wreck depending on how your dyeing works. You know.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but
yeah.
but but that's the real thing about critical race theory is it's a notion about at the in law schools. Okay,
Mhm,
they
mhm.
talk about it as a theory in a sense. Well, how does it impinge upon black people's
Yeah,
ability and freedom to live their life?
yeah,
What's structural? What are these protocols and traditions and laws that keep black people down? Primarily black people. Okay,
mhm.
uh, and that's really what it is. It's uh, something that I mean they don't want kids in schools to learn about how black people were for centuries exploited in this country. Okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and that's and I'm thinking, well, like, oh, well, white kids, well, my children, my white kids will feel guilty. Okay, at Central ISIP, I had lots of white students in among black students and
Yeah,
Latino students and Asian students,
yeah.
and none of them felt guilty. In other words, they said, "This is the way it was."
Yeah, this is the history and this is what
Yeah,
happened. Like
and these are
you
my
shouldn't feel
friends.
guilty for other
Yeah,
people's sins.
look,
Yeah.
I'm white. Do I feel guilty about white people owning slaves? No, I didn't own slaves. Okay,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm white. I mean, so to me, that's all nonsense. That's parental nonsense taken to the nth degree. Okay,
Yeah.
and you know how I feel as an instructor. My job is to make young people feel uncomfortable about stuff that they believe, is totally erroneous. Okay, and I mean, the most scientists, most sociologists will say, even most politicians, if they're honest, will say that when it comes to notions of race,
Yeah.
it's really all about ignorance. Most people, white people, don't. I live in a neighborhood that's all white.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
most of them have never don't have any relationships with black
With
people.
with other
None.
races. Hmm. What
Yeah,
about
I have.
Asians? Do you have Asians by you?
No. This is a no, no. I mean, there are Asians who live, I guess, in the town,
Mm,
and there are a couple of black people who live in the town, but
yeah.
primarily this is a white affluent neighborhood. If there is, I had a lot of black students come to visit. For example, when I was teaching at the university, and the
Yeah.
end of every semester, I
Yeah.
would have I would have like a party,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we'd all sit around and say, okay, hey, we had a great semester
I'm
together.
sure that went well with your neighbors.
Well, but no, but what happened would be, I had one instance, I went crazy. I went crazy. One
Really?
neighbor was particularly outrageously a young black woman who very bright, and she was again, I was training her to be a teacher, and very pretty,
Yeah.
and she parked basically in the curb, by my house. Now I
Uh-oh.
have a very long driveway down
Yeah.
through the woods and everything else.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he went out and
Uh-oh.
gave her the third degree. Like, who are you? What are you doing here? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And she told me about it. I was outraged. I really
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I have another neighbor, as soon as there's any black person on the street, okay?
Wow.
Like sometimes I'll have some black students will be around there selling magazines, or they're doing
Yeah.
something for charity, or they're
Yeah.
doing like for political campaigns, they'll come in and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, would you vote for my candidate?"
Yeah.
I will get a phone call.
Hmm.
And she'll say, "Bill, there's a black person coming down the street, and I just want you to know."
Yeah.
Okay, well, if they're coming down the street in daylight, I don't think they're going to come in and rob my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are people like that. They're just so afraid of
Yeah.
of the other of black people. It's
Well, because
shocking to me.
I mean, like when you're not around different races, and then you only see the negative things on TV or what the news is trying to feed you, you are brainwashed to feel scared and have this fear. And we never had that because we were around all those people, and we have many friends who are all different types of races. And
But I
Chicago was
have
a
to.
beautiful mix of every race.
That's true, but I have to say, Linda, about ignorance as a teacher, as a young teacher, I kind of had this thing about I was supposed to go in with my little piece of chalk every day and
Mhm.
dispel the ignorance of my classes and try to
But
make
then
them
again, there are plenty of people who still are ignorant, like teachers, you said, and students who still come out of CI
Yeah,
races.
yeah, and the ignorance. And see, what bothers me though, when especially like among colleagues, okay, when I knew that they were not necessarily pro, people of color, I felt that here you are, you're educated, and you're in an environment where you should know better.
Yeah,
So what's that all about? And probably it's the culture, both familially
hmm
and socially, in which they grew up.
yeah,
And I can talk about that in a minute because
yeah.
we
But
only had one.
that's interesting too. I mean, but my family is not only people that are open to other races in my family are
Uh,
only me and my sister.
right.
Really, I mean, my mom possibly too, but the male in the family, I feel like they're a little more um possibly, who scared of other races and might have their opinions of other races too.
Yeah, but I mean, but the ignorance works. I mean, in our culture, people believe stuff, or they don't realize what they're talking about. I'll give you a perfect case in point. About ignorance has nothing to do with race. Okay,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
You know the phrase fanny packs.
yeah.
You know what a fanny pack is,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Okay, so now let me ask you a question. Just you define for me a fanny pack. I've never worn one, but what is it, and how do
Yeah.
you wear it?
It's basically like a waist pocketbook, and most people think it's unattractive to wear one, but it's
Right.
just got a pocket and a zipper, so you just wear it on your waist.
And you wear it in front of your body, not the back.
In the old days, you would wear it in the front, but these days, like the modern version, you will wear it probably over your shoulders, and you probably wear it,
Okay.
on the side.
Well, here's what's so funny. Now, I'm an English teacher and I'm a kind of a linguistically interested person. I'm
Yeah,
conversant with
yeah.
three other languages besides English, Italian, French, and Spanish, right? So, and of course, I spend a lot of time in England, and But if you live in the United Kingdom or you live in Australia or New Zealand,
Mhm.
and you talk about a fanny pack,
Yeah,
that's or worse yet, you're a girl who's named Fanny. That's like the worst thing you could a parent could possibly do to her
okay.
daughter,
Uh-huh.
because Fanny doesn't mean bum, doesn't mean butt.
Mhm.
Okay, it has to do with a woman's nether regions.
Oh, really?
Yes, what you call the P word.
Oh, really? So a fanny
Yes.
pack, so that's what they're calling fanny packs.
Yeah, yeah. That's and the fanny pack. So the fanny is I called it like the pudenda. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That because it's worn on the front and usually
Yeah,
on the
more
woman.
in front, and just it just doesn't
And,
look good. It's just like
and
sagging.
Americans walked around, but they were clueless about
Yeah.
where that name came from.
Really? That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny.
Yes, and so, but I'm saying it's a perfect amount of, here it is. That kind of ignorance. People will talk about stuff.
Hmm
They really don't know the origins. They don't know any of the
Yeah,
background.
yeah.
And I'm looking every time I meet somebody now. I mean, when people started calling things fanny packs, I started to giggle all the time. Okay, because I told my wife, I said they don't really know where that
The
comes from.
real meaning of that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I think this. I mean, to me, it's that's a silly kind of ignorance.
Yeah.
Okay,
hmm
it's not hurting anybody. Okay, racism is a dangerous kind of ignorance.
Yeah,
It's really cultural ignorance,
yeah.
and this is causing problems for a lot of people. I mean, I just think that going back to my own background, I grew up in a Half Hollow Hills school
hmm
district,
hmm
and in the building that which is now Half Hollow Hills East.
Yeah.
There was one black student in the whole high school. One.
Wow.
And here's why that your youthful experiences with people of color are important.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you his name, but he was a wonderful guy. He
hmm
was he was if you're going to have a black person in your school, this is the guy. He was a terrific athlete, an
Mhm.
excellent student,
Yeah.
good looking,
Yeah.
and plus the girls loved him because he was he was he was this. I don't want to say an oddity, but because he was the only black male
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
school, that made him immensely attractive.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And it was
okay,
good looking and it was into sports, so he probably was tall and
yeah,
handsome,
yeah.
had a good body.
He was what we call a three-letter man. He had, he was like
Hmm.
the three seasons. You'd have
Yeah.
football and basketball and baseball. He was excellent at all
Oh,
three.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
you'd get varsity letters if you were really that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my point is that, and he used to come to all of our parties and things like that, and people just really liked him, and
Mhm.
so there was never any negativity about his blackness or how he spoke or
Yeah.
how he treated you.
Yeah.
So now, when's the next time I really have to deal with any black people, right? Because again, I'm living in a white and middle class neighborhood,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I go off to St. John's University, and of course, it's got thousands and thousands of students and from all over the world, and they're all different colors and religions and things like that. And so I had a lot of black men and women in my classes, and they were all nice as pie and whatever. So
Yeah.
I never had any bad experiences with people of
Mm.
color. Okay, black people.
Okay.
So I'm going in. I don't have this thing, and my parents, they weren't perfect, but they never expressed any negativity about
Hmm. Hmm.
you know black people.
Yeah.
Never. I mean,
Yeah.
and now partly it's because I guess we didn't have to live in a neighborhood where we had a lot of black people,
Yeah.
and even when around town, I mean, there were very few. In fact, we'd see Chinese people at the local Chinese restaurant, but I would very rarely see black people.
Of course, they're at the Chinese restaurant, right?
And I got to tell you this. This is another thing about. I always heard. Um, I'm going to tell you a story that involved the police. Okay, um, but and what it was I'm working at this gas station. I was moonlighting. It was a friend's gas station, and I was
Yeah.
still teaching. But I told you we were making peanuts.
Yeah.
So I happened to first night and only night, by the way, I went into work the pumps at his place, this gas station, and it was on a really spectacular corner. He was making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
So I go in. It was kind of a warmish night, and all of a sudden, and in those days too, like people come in and they say, "Well, look, I need water in my radiator and things
Yeah.
like that."
Yeah.
So three guys pull up right in front of the office curb, and I go to yeah, we need water. Okay, so I go to open up the hood of the car, and as I do that, they come out of the car. Three of them.
Mhm.
They come out of the car and they point guns at me. Okay,
Mm. Wow.
so I will. Are you kidding me? Remember, it's my first night. I know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they got me to go into the office. There was nobody around, at the station, and they said right away they go to the cash register. Then there was a safe, okay,
Yeah.
and the owner had dropped in a bunch of cash, and there's like a slot in the safe, and he dropped it in.
Yeah.
But I said, hey, look, I don't know the safe. I
Yeah.
don't. I'm just a pump jockey here. It's my first
Yeah.
night,
Yeah.
okay. So, but I'll never forget it because there were three of them, and one guy kept his gun on me the whole time. And the other two
Wow.
guys went through the desk, they went through the thing. And now to this day, I could describe him to you to this day.
Wow.
And that was, I
Wow.
had to be what? It's got to be, I don't know, 45 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So, long and short of it is, and they were slick, okay? Because, first of all, as they're holding guns on me, I hear a police siren in and cop car going in, heading north, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is on Route 110, okay,
Hmm.
in Melville. And what happened, I found out later on, they had robbed a deli,
Hmm.
north of our gas station, and then
Yeah.
they came and they robbed me. So they was like, it's like, oh
Wow.
yeah, the cops are going to go to the other place, and we're going to be free to rob this
Oh.
place that's to the south.
Yeah.
So long and short of it is, the cops say, okay, they give me, we want you to come into the precinct and talk to
Yeah. But
us.
did
And
you get hurt?
oh, well, that's the other thing. I was going to say to you, this was before the crack epidemic,
Hmm.
because they didn't shoot me. They
Yeah.
made me lie down in the ground. They said, lie down on the ground behind this desk, or we'll kill you. That's what they said.
Okay.
So I said, okay. But I stayed there. I could hear their car drive off. Then I got up.
Yeah.
So the fact go out to that, they stole everything, right? All the change and
Yeah. Yeah.
credit card receipts, everything. So I go out to there's a guy waiting at the pump for gas.
Mhm.
I say to him, "Can I borrow a quarter so I can use the phone?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "We've just been robbed."
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I had zero money. Okay, zero, and I had no money on me because I had left it in my car, and
Yeah.
So anyway, so he was astonished. Anyway, the cops come, they want me to go to the precinct. I go to the precinct.
Mhm.
So now what happens is they say, okay, look, could you describe these guys? Well, yeah, So they give me a bunch of mug shot
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
and I start to riffle through them,
Yeah.
and I go, oh, wait a second, I know this guy.
Yeah.
Really? I said, yeah. And then how? I said, he's in my 10th grade non-regents class.
Mhm.
All right. I'd
Mhm.
go through a couple of more pages. Oh, I know this kid too.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, he's in the same class in the 10th grade non. Anyway, I knew three of the three people were in my classes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my 10th grade now reaches class. Again, I was teaching honors classes too, but I always had one to keep me humble, which of course never worked. To try to keep me humble. The principal would make sure I had one non-regents class, which were
Yeah.
the kids who were academically slow, and a lot
Yeah.
of them were troubled kids.
Yeah.
They were on parole out of prison, whatever.
Wow. Yeah.
So I said, well, yeah, this kid. How do you know this kid? Well, this one kid, he was selling drugs, but this kid, I think, obviously he was being a breaking and entering
Mm.
and whatever. So what does this detective say
Yeah.
to his cop friends? He
Yeah.
says to the guy, give him this give this man me over to the police caricatures where they start to ask you questions. What did he look like? How tall? What about the
Yeah.
shape of
Yeah.
his nose? And
Yeah.
they, like an artist, and they say, okay, we'll put together a facial profile.
Yeah.
But here's what he says. He said this appears to be one white man who knows the difference between who can know the difference between black faces.
Oh.
Okay. Now, and why? Because the notion was, and I never heard it about black people before this, is that, well, to white people, all black people look alike.
Yeah. Which is the same thing they say about Asians too.
And that's what I was going to say to you. I only heard that
Yeah.
about Asians first. Okay.
Oh. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I always said, well,
Yeah.
people say, well, these Chinese, they all look alike.
Yeah,
Okay.
like all of them, all the different ones,
Yeah.
Chinese, Japanese,
Yeah,
Korean,
exactly. They all look
yeah,
alike.
they all look
So,
alike. Yeah.
so I was kind of surprised by that because I
But
never
they
heard
said
it.
it about Black people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But of course, and why was I able to tell the difference among different black faces was
Yeah.
because, yeah, I was dealing with multicultural students, and
Yeah.
so I knew that, well, that's the ignorant myth that all
Hmm.
black people look alike or all
Yeah.
Chinese people look alike.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people believe that nonsense, see?
Hmm.
And I know people who
Wow.
still believe that nonsense.
Yeah, because if you're not around those things, around those people, you're not familiar with all the different types of faces and different types of, d- you know, Asians and nationalities of those Asians as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it before in another podcast about how if they took some basic courses in philosophy, for example, and I used to
Yeah.
teach it in school and
Yeah.
to high school students, but they used to talk about substance versus accident, and substance is
Mm-hmm.
you're a human being,
Yeah.
okay, you're Homo sapiens, and
Yeah.
accident is, well, you're a black Homo sapiens or an Asian Homo sapiens,
And there's albino white Black people too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, the key here is though that there's no scientific difference, okay,
Yeah.
between black people, white people, Asian
Because
people.
we're all the human race.
But
We're
here's
all
what's so,
the same. Yeah.
yeah, but here's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
Where you can people that white people call black, when they
Yeah.
start to like do all these DNA testing, like
Yes,
ancestry,
I heard about this. This is super fascinating. I think I know where you're gonna go with this. I know.
yeah, about ancestry.com and things like that. What they find is,
Yeah.
for example, Henry Louis Gates was one of the great celebrated black scholars. Okay,
Yeah. Hmm.
he found out through uh, the DNA in his genes
Hmm.
that okay, uh, that he had some white grandparent and some other black somebody. No, it was a really mixed bag. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
that's so. But here's the thing: he's half black
Yeah.
because the other side, the other half,
Yeah.
now they'll say white, but here's the other issue. When you say white, white people are not all the same, just like black people are not all the
Yeah,
same. Because
exactly.
if you're white, what's your background? What's your genetic background?
Yeah.
Are you like, were you Italian or
Hmm.
you know,
Irish.
Irish or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah.
And also in that white stuff, there can be also you may have had some percentage of black genes as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so really biology
Hmm.
uh, nowadays with
Yeah.
DNA studies and stuff can help dispel an awful lot of the nonsense about that black people are. No, I don't know anybody all black. Any black person is all black. In
No,
my opinion.
exactly. That's why I tell everybody, like, if your skin is a little bit light, you have white in you, because back in the slave days, everybody was either raping the women who were working in the fields, and you have all of these light colored, people who came over.
But see, I mean, most most of my students nowadays they realize that race is, in fact, the notion of race is a social construction.
Yeah, yeah.
But but
Oh, but
but,
here,
but
here was the thing that I wanted to tell you. Like,
yeah,
I had read an article, watched this documentary that about the DNA, and the DNA of Black people. They have another, like, I forgot what the number is. Like, how many number of DNA genetics that white
yeah,
people
sure,
have? It's like, what, 36 or something like that. I don't know what the number is,
right,
but whatever the number is, that the normal average amount of like whites and Asians have a number. I just want to say 36, whatever the number is.
right, uh-huh.
But Black people actually have more. So intellectually, and the completion of those DNAs and genetics of it, they actually have more. So technically, they're actually more intelligent than the rest of us.
Yeah, and you know how hard it is to sell that to white people?
Well, I know that, but it's science. Like, when I read this, I was like,
Yeah,
wow, that is fascinating.
yeah, but Linda, look at how people are rejecting science all the
I
time,
know.
especially
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah.
And this and by the way, this is a political thing. These right wing politicians. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, uh, there are left wing politicians who are also a problem. So I have to be
Yeah.
fair, but not then.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in this. Is not false equivalency. I mean, there are some left wing people that are really too. They're so extreme. It's embarrassing. But um, the fact of the matter is that uh, you can't. I find it so hard to talk about this stuff sometimes. I had one of the things that George W. Bush, as a president, I thought was one of the dumbest presidents I had ever seen in my lifetime.
Mhm.
Until, of course, Trump came up, made, he made Bush look like an Einstein.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Bush said, he talked about this soft bigotry of expectation. I have a quote here, I think. Where is it? Uh, the soft. I was right. The soft bigotry of low expectations,
Mhm.
and here's how that works out in a school, okay, and works out in life.
Yeah.
People ex- don't expect much
Yeah.
of white people don't expect much of people of other races. Okay,
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
saying, well, they're not as smart as we are. They
Yeah.
they don't come out of affluent communities the way some of us, many
Yeah.
of us do.
Yeah.
So for example, when they talk about affirmative action, okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
affirmative action uh, was kind of interesting. It was almost kind of like I'm going to say it was almost like a kind of reparations, really. Saying, well, black people have been oppressed for so long. We're
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
try to, correct that. Okay.
Mhm.
And certainly in the schools or universities and things like that, they'd say, well, we're going to take people, black people
Yeah.
especially, who may be, their standardized testing isn't as good or whatever, but we're going to take them and let them see what they
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
But part of the problem there was that just the fact of they were representatives or they were present, okay,
Mhm.
was a good thing and a big thing, but they weren't necessarily uh, expecting them to perform well. You see,
Wow.
and so that's a problem because a lot of people say, well, they're there. And you could say, like I used to hear it in my building all the time, that so and so
Mhm.
was black and
Yeah.
was an affirmative action baby. In other words,
Yeah. Yeah.
got this job because they needed a token black person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so here's how that's working.
Yeah.
Now, I had a black student who was very successful, okay, and a woman, and she would say to me that she, on the one hand, she saw where affirmative action had been a bit of a benefit, but the problem was for someone like her was that, well, all of a sudden they were kind of poo-pooing her expertise in her chosen career,
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
and that was a problem for her, and I could understand that. So I used to really kind of wrestle with the thing about affirmative action, because I'm saying, well, gee, there is a downside for the black
Yeah.
person involved who's a doctor or a lawyer or
Yeah.
whatever,
Hmm.
because people are thinking behind their backs, well, affirmative
They
action
just
maybe.
got here just because of their color.
Eh,
Oh, but
eh,
the other thing that we have to make sure we get in is back when there was a race riot in CI,
oh, right, right, right,
and
right.
then there was a speech that you said you had.
Oh, you remember I told you that, huh?
Yeah.
Gee, I'm sorry you did. No, yeah, I was a first year teacher, okay, and of course non-tenured, and there were a lot of us. And in the spring of my first year, they had this huge race riot, and
Hmm.
it closed down Central Islip High School for the first and only time in its
Wow.
history, before
Yeah.
or since. And all of a sudden the cops are in the building, and then there were a lot of black militant leaders in the building,
Yeah.
and we were having all these you know meetings and all kinds of stuff. Then of course we were talking about what they used to call then sensitivity sessions, quote unquote,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
to make white people more sensitive. Okay, but I'm listening. I'm one of I guess it's the second or third day of this. We were having this big meeting of the whole faculty and everybody else, the cops, whatever. And some couple of teachers stood up and they were complaining about these kids. So I'm a young guy. I'm innocent. I'm idealistic.
Yeah.
But finally, I'm listening to stuff, and I was getting more and more agitated. In fact, one of my colleagues said to me, "I could see your face working, and I
You're like
knew you were
boiling.
about to
You're
go."
boiling.
Yeah, yeah. And I said, "You know what?
Let me tell you something.
Yeah." And I did. I said, "First of all, a lot of these kids, they think they think which you're racist, and I know that many of you are not racist, but the problem is
Yeah.
you treat them like cattle, and you treat them with no respect. You're not at all, and you're saying that the rules are more important than they are, okay?
Yeah.
And but I said, but the reason why I understand how they feel is because you treat the us first year teachers the same way. In other words,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're newcomers,
Yeah.
and since we don't have tenure, you think probably we're not going to be here very long,
Yeah.
if
And you're
another.
not important. We don't need to
Yeah,
treat you with
and I said,
respect.
you're just rude, you're curt, you're abrasive, you're insensitive. And I said, I totally get it. And
Yeah.
you have to start listening to what these kids are telling you.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, you want to hear a place erupt. Oh
Mm.
man, okay. I mean, because remember, who the hell am I? I'm a
Yeah.
first year
Were they
teacher.
gonna go come and attack you?
Yeah, and I'm a white kid saying, you know what, listen to these black kids. I
A
mean, come
white
on.
surfer dude?
Yeah, or whatever. And there are teachers today who are in that meeting, who are
Yeah.
alive today,
Yeah.
and they will remember what I did.
Really?
Okay, and yeah, and because just the fact that I did it, I
Yeah.
don't even remember half of what I said because it's been
Yeah.
many, many years ago. Okay,
Yeah.
but the point was, I was outraged by what I saw was this huge, huge insensitivity,
Yeah.
first to young people in general, but black kids in particular. In
Hmm.
particular, okay.
Hmm.
And we had some tough black kids. Don't get me wrong; these were not all saintly kids. They were not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, they were rough. Some of them,
Yeah.
some of them. But again, some of them were also very bright, and they were like, for example, like I mentioned some names to you before, which I don't want to do right now, but
Yeah.
um, that were I wouldn't call them militant, I'd call them activists. Okay, and they
Hmm.
were very smart, and they
Yeah.
were tenacious and things like that.
Yeah.
Going back to my whole thing about the soft bigotry of low expectations, the fact is that having taught so many students of color, okay,
Hmm.
blacks, Latinos, Asians, I knew how bright they were. They were as bright, if not brighter, than any other students I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is something, and why can I say that? Well, because unlike a lot of my white neighbors, I worked and lived with black people and black colleagues as well as
Mhm,
black
mhm.
students.
Yeah,
And the again, it goes to this thing about its ignorance of the other because they
yeah,
just
yeah.
don't have
And
any.
that's the perfect segue to tell us about when you were teaching Black Lit.
Oh, yeah, that's a story and a half. Here I am, sometimes the only white person in the room with a bunch, which anywhere from 15 to 25 black students,
Yeah,
and I'll never forget my first semester because my first semester, uh, I knew without getting into the backstory first, I thought when I walked in there, the
yeah,
students who had asked the principal that I teach this course, I
yeah,
thought they were going to be in the room.
yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
and well, I walked in, and much to my horror, all the blacks. I don't think I knew any black student in there.
Really?
They were all new. Yeah, they were all
You
new to
all
me.
knew?
Yeah. Now
Oh,
the second semester, I had students that I had known.
and you knew that
Yeah,
they were pushing for this class.
yeah,
Oh,
and there were only two other white people in the room.
yeah.
One of them, Jordan Turk, okay,
Oh, okay.
uh, yeah, and a girl named Florence Cordovano, and I loved them.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah, yeah,
love them to this day.
yeah.
They were they were almost like my security blankets in there because I'm thinking, you know, I'm I'm the only white guy here, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So one kid, and I'm trying to remember if it was that semester or the second semester, but some black kids says to me in front of the whole group. So wait a second. So since you're teaching this class, you're a white person teaching this class. Are we supposed to believe or understand that you're not a racist? You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I said, well, I can't answer that for you. I
Hmm.
can't tell you I'm not a racist or not.
Yeah,
What do you mean? I said, well, first of all, I'm white, and I grew up in a white community. I'm sure that there are a lot of unconscious racist things I don't even realize are racist because you know, that's number one. Although, by the way, at that point in my career, I probably did know,
a
you know,
lot.
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
But
You've
I said, hey,
outread you yeah, go ahead.
no, I said, but hey, I might miss something, right?
Yeah,
And then I said, but you're going to be in my class 5 days a week for 20 weeks. It was a one semester course. Okay.
yeah,
And at the end of the class, you're going to let me know if I'm a racist or not.
yeah,
You're going to listen to me.
yeah.
We're going to have discussions.
Hmm.
Who knows what I might say, right?
Yeah, it's gonna
And
be your opinion.
yeah, and so you and your classmates, yeah, I'll let you know when the grades are into the guidance department, and I can't change them.
Mhm.
And then you can tell me either in the class or outside of class to my
Yeah.
face
Yep.
whether you think I'm a racist or not. And then just give me specifics because then
Mhm.
maybe I will have learned something that I can change, right?
Yeah.
So, so that was the kid looked at me like, okay, fine, all right. And I'll give you a perfect example of how white people unconsciously, and I did it for a while myself.
Yeah.
What's one of the things I learned? Like if I would say, well, this person's a black lawyer, and they oh, well, wait, stop. What difference does it make if she's black or not?
Yeah.
A lawyer is a lawyer.
Mhm.
A doctor is a doctor. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's so that to make the difference,
Mhm.
when you talk to people, well, this
Yeah.
lawyer is black. Well,
Yeah.
what does that say? Well, because she's a black lawyer, she's not as good.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Mhm.
So it was stuff like that. That this is where uh, we white folk can be unconsciously racist because we'll make and by the way, that's really innocent. You're saying, well, I know this lawyer who happens to be a black person, but
Yeah.
I also learned from students they were really sensitive. Black students really sensitive about how everything negative was
Yeah.
called black.
Yeah.
Okay, and everything positive was white.
Yeah.
For one of my favorite ones,
Yeah.
what student said to me, he says, I'm even irate about in the wintertime that when they talk about the weather and they talk about black ice. And I'm going, really? I
That's
said,
funny.
I mean, it's not meant to be a racist slur. He said,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
the whole
You
idea is that
you
this is
can't see it, so it's black, right? They're just like, oh,
yeah, or
what is
or it's or it's dangerous. It's dangerous, so
yeah.
it's black. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just thought that was hysterical. I loved it. But I mean, that's the kind of things you learn when
Mhm.
you're like a white person teaching something like
Yeah. Yeah.
American
Yeah.
Lit. you
Yeah.
know?
So wait, how did you get chosen? And also, so I want to bring up the story because I had spoken and done a podcast with Trisha Hicks,
Oh,
and
really?
she had told me that she and other students were trying to get, Black lit into the curriculum and wanted to take it. And obviously, I think they chose you as their top person because, oh, Mr. Schiavo, I guess out of all the white people, he would be a good one, right?
Well, that's well, let me. That's kind of true, but what happened was they had come into my class, one of my
Mhm.
classes, with a petition
Yeah.
the year before, and the year before they want, and the African American Lit course had been on the curriculum guide for 15 years,
Yeah.
okay, but no one ever taught it. I think we had
Uh,
one black English teacher, and when she retired,
mhm.
and she only taught it for one semester. I mean, it was only
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
so, but so now, of course, she's gone. And now these kids, who I said are very activist, and they said, "Hey, well, look, we need a course in black lit." I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, and I had some background in it and whatever, but from college and things, and so they come in with this petition, and I
Mhm.
see like 2 pages worth of names,
Yeah.
and I'm on the top. My name's on the top, and I start to get a little torqued off because I'm saying, "Wait a second, who put my name on this list? I didn't sign this. I didn't."
Yeah.
No, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You're not getting this. No, we want you to teach it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I said, but well, I said, I have other things I have to teach next year. I
Yeah.
don't know what
I
my
don't know. I'm gonna
schedule
have
is.
time. Yeah.
So, well, we're gonna get. We have to get a whole bunch of. The principal said we have to get more than 30 kids. We got to get 60, 75 kids because of scheduling. He said, you know, the kids that sign this may not be able to take it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they won't make an issue of having it on the schedule.
Yeah.
So, one thing leads to another, and I talked. I go into the principal and I say, hey, look, what's this about? You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So he said, well, first of all, he said, would you teach it? Now
Hmm.
I'm thinking you have to remember, going back to what I said before about my 9 reasons class.
Yeah.
At that point, I was teaching honors world literature. I
Yeah.
was also teaching AP, okay, which I had started. There had never been an AP English class,
Yeah.
and the reason I taught it is nobody else wanted to teach it.
Oh,
Why?
okay.
Because they had a national exam, okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
teachers. I'm going to tell you about teachers, okay, but there are certain kinds of exams, like the Regents exam, the New York
Yeah.
State Regents,
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
the AP. They're afraid that if their students don't do well, they get a reputation for being a really bad teacher. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Me, I said I like a challenge,
Yeah.
and I'll take the hit. And I also, what can I do? I mean, but I also felt that the school needed an AP English class. It had an AP history class.
Did they ever have one
It
at
had some. I had other AP classes, but not in English. They
No,
had,
not in English.
I
Okay.
think they had one in physics, and I think they had one in social studies, whatever. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
so then he says, so I said, well, look, you're the principal. I mean, if you can work this out of my schedule, and of course, I'm thinking if I do teach it, I
Hmm.
won't have to teach this a non-Regents class again, which was for me, you
It was
know,
hard, right, for your schedule.
well, it was I had to change my whole vocabulary when I went at that class.
Yeah.
And so it was something like I said, I just felt I was better.
Yeah.
I was more effective teaching these like honors level kids or
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
that want, like for example, an African American lit, they weren't honors kids necessarily, but they were motivated to take the class. You see,
Yeah.
what
They
you
were
want,
interested in the class and they were interested in
yes,
learning. So,
yeah. Now,
mm,
I thought I was pretty good at motivating students to want to learn more, be better,
a
things
little
like
bit, a little bit, right?
yeah, I try. I try. But anyway, so anyway, so he says to me, so I'm being a little uh, devious, a little Machiavellian here, because I said, well, I can get out of teaching a non-reasons class. I can teach a course that might be more fun for me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
challenging in a different way.
Yeah.
So he said, so I said, well, look, if you can work into my schedule, that's great. I'll do it, and I'll
Hmm.
keep AP and I'll keep honors, and that's how it worked out. But he says that, but he said to me, you know, uh, the group, the group of kids said to me why they chose you. There was no black teacher in the
Yeah.
department, and they said, well, of all the black teachers, of all the white teachers in the department, we had about 21. Okay,
Yeah.
we think that he the
Might be.
most might be
Might
the
be.
most likely to be
Hmm.
fair.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
and I say, well, that's kind of a left-handed compliment, like,
Yeah.
it's,
Might be.
maybe,
Yeah.
might be, all these
Yeah,
conditional
yeah,
terms.
totally. And Trisha told me, she's like, yeah, like they put you on top of the list, but they're still like worry. And she said that she'll never forget what you told them in front of the class. Like, listen, I've forgotten more books than you have ever read, and that kind of put them into place. Like, oh, all right, okay.
Well, I also may have said too that they were. I would have said probably after. And by the way, a lot of them were black literature. In other words,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was true.
yeah,
And part of why they also had chosen me to do it was
yeah,
because they were in a junior honors. I rarely taught juniors. I taught them over the years when I
yeah,
first started, but certainly uh, I was so busy doing the AP classes and the honors classes
yeah,
when they had an overload. They had, I guess, a couple of years. They had an overload of honors juniors, and so
yeah,
that I taught
yeah,
that I taught that a junior class that Trisha was in,
yeah,
and I did books that were considered to be kind of radical for the time.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
like there was some teachers were doing the no, they weren't. Were they doing Malcolm X? They may have done the autobiography of Malcolm X, but I did Man Child of the Promised Land, and the one that always tell people I did, which was totally radical,
Mhm.
was Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver, who had been a Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I had a black parent come in on open school night and said, "I can't believe you did that book." And by the way, oh, that's the same parent said, "I walked through the door and
Mhm.
my son told me you had signed that book." He said,
Yeah.
"I walked through the door so that you were white. I couldn't believe it." So I went, well, I'm trying to
Yeah.
see. My thing was I was trying to be fair, and I was
Yeah.
trying to say, look, I'm not afraid of
Yeah.
black kids
Yeah,
reading
exactly. You
radical
you
books.
showed like very probably militant books, and then you show them other books, and you show them
Yeah, yeah,
there's this way, there's this way, so you didn't censor the different types of views people have. They're not
yeah,
you're not telling them to believe a certain thing. These are just views that people have.
yeah. And then my job to kind of lead them through some of the
Yeah.
more radical things and why
Yeah.
they probably weren't a good idea or something. But the
Yeah.
issue for me too is also as a book person.
Yeah.
I think I spoke about it in my interviews with you about book banning and censorship.
Yeah.
Is that I tried to make it even. In other words, there were books that were kind of more, I should say, less militant black books and poems, and
Yeah.
some more militant. I tried to even that out. Okay,
Mhm.
and and,
Mhm.
and also same thing with some books by white people that were not necessarily as pro-black as they might have been. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
issue is to be has to have a certain kind of um, a certain kind of neutrality in terms of
Yeah.
it, so they can.
And yeah, you have to be as a teacher.
It's well, you want to keep it balanced. You want to keep it
Yeah,
balanced.
yeah. And before we end, because time is getting close to the end of this subject, but
Right.
I know you don't like to, I don't know, be too flashy with your, your teaching and how kids love you and all of this, and to your own horn, as they say. But I would love for you to read the letter from Trisha in the newspaper.
Right. Uh, man, you're really gonna make me look. Well, hold on. I think I may have to put. Let me see if I can find it, and I may have to put glasses on and stuff to read this because they did cataract surgery, and my reading eye. I'm not happy with what they did with it because
Oh,
they
the
said.
light's good. I can see your shirt more, the colors.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
couldn't see the colors as much before.
Well, at my age, I try to hide my face. And so she was interviewed in the high school newspaper, okay?
Yeah.
8 years after she graduated.
Mhm.
And I think her niece or somebody was on the school newspaper.
Mm.
I don't know nobody told me about this article. I don't know how I found it, who gave it to
Oh,
me.
really?
Somebody did, but I
Oh,
was just shocked. And none of my former colleagues said, "Oh God, this isn't this former student said this
yeah.
nice thing
Like, why
about it."
would they not tell you about it, right? Like, they should.
Uh, I don't know. I guess they're busy. What can I tell you? All right. So
Mm,
anyway,
mhm.
so here's what she said.
Yeah.
And by the way, the only thing is, before you even read it, she
Yeah.
she says that I was like 5 foot tall. No, I'm 5'6". Okay, 5'6". I want that clear. I was not
Clear.
as short
5 or 6.
as
You're not, yeah. Let's make that
absolutely.
clear, everybody. 5'6".
So here, let me read this. Okay,
Okay.
so Trisha's most influential teacher was a man named Mr. Bill Schiavo who taught English. She describes Mr. Schiavo as being a quote now, well-educated, well-respected, and well-traveled man, yet his look was one of a nerdy old school surfer who was keeping hope alive. She was so mean. Mr. Schiavo was an English teacher, and therefore, due to his appearance, was, I am sure, misread and misunderstood by many. Yet his district reputation, effect on students, and immeasurable ability and knowledge in the field was undeniable. He was often heard proclaiming, I have forgotten more books in my life than you will ever read in yours. That is true. That's an exact quote. His most attractive and envied characteristic, though, was his ability to know what he knew. This barely 5 foot, 5'6",
Five or
okay,
six. Yes, yes. Add that.
50-something gray-haired Caucasian man proudly organized the introduction of and was the teacher for our African American literature course. Say what? And he shut the mouth of the naysayers and embarrassed the Afrocentrically challenged while compelling the rest of us to know at least as much as he knew about our people.
There we
I
go.
thought that was almost makes me cry right now. I
Oh,
love it. Really.
oh. See, it's not a LindaLCheung podcast unless someone cries. Like,
Mom, hey, look, I held it together. I just got a little emotion, a little
yeah.
softer.
No, I mean, like when I had my podcast with her, I started crying too. Like, it's very touching. Just
I
all of
will,
it.
I will have to. I will look forward to watching that. As
Yeah,
soon as.
yeah, we definitely started crying because it was a tough podcast for her on the day because it was the 21st. Her brothers both had gotten into a car crash that day, and it was five
Oh,
years
yeah,
also since her
yeah,
mom had passed away.
right.
So, and then we go into my past, and then we both just start crying.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
but I'm going to say this to you though. One of the things I was really a fan of, even in high school, I was a fan of the ancient Greeks.
Mhm.
And people say, well, how come they got amassed such great knowledge, and just from observation, weren't doing experimentation, doing observation.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things about their society was, which is becoming almost, they're trying to shut it down in our society. They had no taboos about
Mm.
discussing anything.
Oh, okay.
No taboos at all.
Yeah,
They would
yeah,
discuss anything and everything, and they'd come to conclusions based on heavy duty observations. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and this is my goes back to my podcast about censorship and book banning.
yeah.
That to me is, and by the way, that's the reason why they developed democracy. Okay, they were
Mhm,
the ones who had a direct democracy, one man, one vote. Although in Athens there were 10,000 citizens who
mhm.
could vote. They were men, and they
Yeah.
had 100,000 slaves. Okay, that's another story. Okay.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why the Greek philosophers could spend so much time observing and coming up to
They're not
conclusions.
doing anything.
Yeah, they was sitting on their park bench,
They're
feeding the
just trying.
pigeons.
They're just hanging out, looking beautiful because they're not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. They had slaves doing all the work,
Oh my
And
God.
then, of course, women couldn't vote. So you
Mhm.
got these like 10,000 Greek citizens.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
say male because, again, the women, were, and by the way, their women were just there to have babies and, things like that. I mean, that was it.
Yeah, and then they probably had like many women on the side
But
along with.
I think that, you know, and look, they had their bigotries about other cultures. I mean, anybody who was not Greek was called a barbarian. That's how they.
Oh, yeah,
If you
yeah,
were not
yeah.
Greek, you were called a barbarian.
Oh,
And so they had their own level of bigotry about certain things.
yeah,
But I have to say that bigotry in general is kind of interesting. I used to always say to my students, there was never going to be any, like, you have women's lib,
mhm,
and all kinds of other liberation groups.
yeah,
I
yeah.
said, but there's never going to be a group called ugly lib, because no one's going to want to walk around with a placard up over the head saying, I'm ugly, I'm ugly. That's why I can't get a job. I'm oppressed because I'm ugly. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure that
It's like
many
an
people.
ugly. It's like uglyism instead of racism. It'd be
Yeah,
like
and by
uglyism.
but by the way, there is some truth to the fact, if you're fat and ugly,
Yeah.
Okay, that's even worse because we have a whole thing about obesity in this country.
Yeah,
Now, you know,
you're judged. That is another ism because you are judged, and they just
yeah,
automatically assume you're not
people,
healthy and not intelligent.
yeah, people can actually lose jobs because they're too heavy.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, look, obviously they claim it's something some other reason, but the issue is, my wife used to work for a doctor for a while,
yeah,
and he only had, I think he had 3 or 4 women working with him in the
yeah,
at the front desks,
yeah.
and he would always say whenever because she used to help hire and fire, and he said, look, whenever you have a new interviewee come in,
Mhm,
just understand they have to be attractive. They got to be good looking, okay?
mhm.
Because he knew what most of us might know is that is when you're going into any place, you want to be. That's why people buy great art. They want to be surrounded by beautiful things,
Yeah,
and that includes people. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
but I mean, but now, I mean, of course, you even among the races, you have colorism. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
to,
yeah. You have colorism within races also,
that's it. Yeah,
besides just
yeah,
racism. But yeah,
yeah.
in Asian culture, like it's always better if you have lighter skin, and
Uh-huh.
all the Asian parents would be like, "Oh my God, you're too dark. You're too dark. Like you look black. Your tan is too dark." And the
Yeah,
same thing
yeah.
with in black culture too. Like if you have lighter skin, you will the lighter skin black girls will get into fights because the blacker students and kids will fight them because they don't like that they're prettier and lighter.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's sad. It's really is sad.
Yeah,
But I think that I don't know that because of human nature that this will ever get better in the sense
mm,
that there's always going
mhm.
to be a certain level of fear or envy of the other. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember, I think one of my funny things was my second year of teaching. I had a young man, a really great guy, and he was showing off his tan, black guy, showing
yeah,
off his tan to his
yeah,
friends, his girlfriends,
yeah,
because you can see, well, see my tan line, and we show it because yeah, he says, and he said to me, look, I said, yeah, we black people can get tan, we can get darker. But I mean, it's stuff like that that white people don't seem to really appreciate, don't seem to
yeah,
understand.
yeah, yeah,
I just think that it's sad. But again, going back to the Central Islip experience, yes, was there racism among the kids to a certain degree? Yeah, but it was really, I thought, well, very well moderated, frankly.
mhm.
And were there some racist teachers? Yeah, and I would never tell my students who they were. The students had to make their own decisions
Yeah,
about.
they can tell themselves, you can sense it which
Well,
ones
yeah, but you know
are.
what? Sadly, sometimes they couldn't. Sometimes they didn't realize. They
Yeah,
didn't realize
yeah,
that, you know, and I just I didn't feel I never felt that I should clue them in because, by the way, I hate calling people racist. I do
yeah,
because
yeah,
again, so much of it I know to be unconscious that, um,
yeah.
uh,
Even on an unconscious level, even if they didn't know, unconsciously they felt it. Like
yeah.
I did a podcast with, we're gonna end it soon, but I had a podcast with Sunrise Scott, and she left school junior year and graduated early and went to
Uh-huh,
school in Pennsylvania. So she
right?
was super intelligent, but she never connected really with any of the teachers because she felt like othered by the
Yeah,
teachers and never
yeah.
felt a connection in school. So she didn't have a good experience because she felt that from the teachers.
But I used to ask my college students. I used to say, well, look, how many of you had this, like, really how many memorable teachers did you have in grades 7 through 12?
Hmm.
And I would get a smattering of hands,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And how many of you had at least one?
yeah,
And maybe not the whole class, but a portion of the class would raise their hand. Oh yeah, they had one outstanding, memorable teacher.
yeah,
How many of you had two? Okay, well
yeah,
now there were fewer hands.
yeah,
Anybody have three?
yeah.
They never got past two. Okay,
Really,
and
really.
yeah, and invariably, of the teachers that were they found memorable, they were either their English teacher, thank
Hmm.
goodness, or one of their coaches, or
Yeah, like it's something that they're passionate about.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah, so
exactly right.
that's yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and also, but the reason for that is too that remember the coaches would take a personal interest in certain athletes, number one,
Yeah,
and English teachers we're a soft subject, you know,
yeah,
we're about poetry. We were about love. We're about love and about sensitivity, and
It's
passion
the
and
art. It's the art of the words.
yeah. But I mean, it's about romance and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not about trying to learn calculus and hard
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
So we're I always tell my college students if you're going to be an English teacher and you're not your student's favorite teacher,
Yeah.
man, you really are screwed up. You're screwed
Oh,
up and
yeah.
or screwing up because
Yeah.
you have a subject where you can discuss everything.
Yeah.
Um, in the English regions, used to always be a question, like there's essay questions,
Hmm.
and I learned what I was supposed to do when I taught English, and that was the question. The first thesis statement was, in literature, as in life, and then they'd have some thesis like there is conflict, and then show
Yeah.
two words with it. But that was the phrase in literature as in life, which meant when I was teaching literature, anything having to do with life was doable, was
Yeah.
worthy of a conversation, worthy of
Yeah.
a discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yes.
that's why I talked about everything: religion, politics, sex.
Yeah.
I went from from abortion to zoology. I mean, the whole 9 yards. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
nothing like the ancient Greeks. There were no taboos in my
Hmm.
classroom other than
Yeah.
using appropriate language,
Hmm.
being too graphic, no
Yeah.
curse words, things like that. But we could discuss that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think on that note, I think we'll probably end. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I appreciate you taking the time. And until next time, we are going to talk about the students you had and their impact and your opinion about how basically all these CI students came out amazing and are super smart. And
Gee, you sound like you have a bias there, Linda.
I do have a little bias because honestly, I want to thank you for doing these podcasts with me because here's the reason why is that it sparked an interest in basically giving the voice of my friends and other students that I know from CI. And I wanted to eventually do a Netflix documentary about, the voices of CI, like the little giants and the kids who were steered to CI and what happened to them. And a lot of my friends and students who were at CI are all like affluent professionals. Some are, doctors, some are, teachers, some are got their doctorates, and all of them are super intelligent. And I want to tell their stories. So
and,
this will
and
be the platform.
I think that's a wonderful idea of yours, and I also will look forward to watching that. And since I know so many of those students, and um, I still am in touch with many of them,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that's a great idea. So
Okay.
I
Great.
tell you, Central ISIP, I don't think ever got its due, got its credit for being such. People say, well, again, my black students would say, yeah, what was the running joke? What makes a school a good school on Long Island or a bad school on Long Island?
Yeah.
And they would say, if it's a bad school if there are black people in it. That's what
Oh
they
my
would say.
God.
And
Really?
I'd say, yeah, of course.
Oh
Yeah,
my
because people say,
God.
well, because remember, if you're living in a white neighborhood like I am, or like
Yeah.
I grew up in
Yeah. Yeah.
half
Yeah.
on the hills,
Yeah.
oh, black kids, so I mean, must be bad, must be like
Yeah.
because black kids aren't smart and they steal stuff and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's great. But anyway, all right, look, we
All
will
right.
end this, and then
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
yeah.
can hear me and see me? Wait, hold on. You can't see me. I can't see you. There it is, start video. I do this all the time. I'm gonna be zooming all day today.